I know it's lunchtime, but when we have folks from lifestyle on the dais, I think it becomes an interesting conversation because there is a lot to learn from them and hear from their success story. Lifestyle in India has been an absolutely magical company, a business that is about 12,000 crores in turnover, uh, post-tax margins in double digit, which is, similar to the EBITDA margin that most people in this industry aspire for. A business that has grown consistently year on year, but more importantly, fantastic value systems, a team that has stuck on, a culture that seems really interesting. So, Dev and Sheetal, uh, I'm going to ask you questions to help understand what is the secret sauce that makes Lifestyle India tick, and what are the learnings that can be taken away by the audience here, which represents people from different fashion and retail brands. And are there any messages that you want to give back to the people here? So with that, Dave, starting with you, you know, you guys have built a fantastic organization, but you are in very few businesses. Can you help us understand how do you think about each business? What is your decision matrix like? How do you get into a business? How do you decide to exit in business?
Yeah, thanks, Pankaj. So, Landmark as a culture, the DNA of the organization is to really think for today, really think here and now, rather than really make very large plans, 5-year plans, 10-year plans. The entire belief is deep-rooted on consumer. So we look, even today, while we are 12,000, 13,000 crore business, we still think very, very granular. We look at a store and say, we've got a store here. What should I do for that store? Who's the consumer? What should be my product assortment, pricing? And that's where it starts. So it's very, very granular thinking. Attention is into details. And the belief is, if you can make one small store profitable, then you've got the model right, then you're able to scale it. So that's really the thinking. We think a lot. We debate a lot. There's a lot of challenge, a lot of to's and fro's, debate in the boardroom. But what is very unique about our organization is that once a decision is taken, and because the decision has been taken after a lot of deliberation, we stick to that decision. I have, in my last 8-9 years, I have very rarely seen a very strategic decision being overturned, even after 5 years. So sometimes the idea may be too soon for the market, but we stick to it because we genuinely believe, we have conviction in the idea. So if you really see our journey, Lifestyle International has got 4 companies, 4 brands. There's Lifestyle, Max, Home Center, and Easy Buy. We've just stuck to these 4 companies. And we go really deep into each of these brands, make them work store by store. So our building block is store by store. It's really not a very mega picture. Yeah.
That's very interesting, which is to say that if you get one store right and you can replicate it, then you've got the entire business right and everything else follows. Sheetal, I would like you to come in here and share what are the matrices that you look at when you look at each store, you look at the business, you look at people, you look at productivity.
Yeah. In fact, Pankaj, one line which sums up our financial prudence is our core belief that sanity is more important than vanity. And this industry is plagued with a lot of players looking at a lot of fancy financial metrics, contributions at store level, or even EBITDA, right? In fact, it just reminds me, a couple of days back, our veteran banker, KV Kamath, mentioned that maybe EBITDA as a word should be eliminated from the financial lexicon, because oftentimes it reveals a lot less than what it hides, right?
Then so what happens to GMV?
I mean, this is what we think of EBITDA. We don't even know what GMV is, but, truth be told, in our P&L statement, we don't even have a line called EBITDA, So we have very, very simple metric, which is making profit at a store level, what they were saying. All costs in. So store PBT is the only real metric which you have in financial terms. And if you have 600 stores, you add up all of them, that gives you company's profit. There's not a single cost line item which is sitting outside the store. Everything is baked in. And then the store unit economics are worked on. Beyond that, to make sure that the balance sheet and the cashes are also looked at it, so return on capital and cash flows. So while for any leading organization, growth is an imperative, but keeping that balance between P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow, I think that has really helped us and in good state over a long, long period of time.
So what happens, they spoke about long decision process, and once you make a decision, you stick with it. On the other side, you're talking about profitability at store level. If stores are not profitable, what do you do?
So I think there are two ways we'll look in. Both scenarios are possible. We gave it our best shot to make sure that the store turns around, because eventually there are no fancy. This is a company which is more about ground point than PowerPoint. So essentially, why the store is not working, have you got the catchment or the store location wrong? Very little can be done. And therefore, more often than not, it's very rare that it happens, but for some of our formats which are in even high streets, it does happen. So we actually exit. If it seems to be more of a sort of an operations efficiency issues, whether it is product, merchandise, assortment being right, because today in India, business is very different. What happens in North is very different from what happens in, let's say, Kerala, right? And seasonality and so on and so forth. So if it is operational issues, we sort of give it our best shot. But if we see that the store is making loss and there are no hope, we don't mind shutting it as well.
So from what I'm hearing from you, you're a very boring company. You do the same thing again and again. Then how do you retain talent? How do you bring in people? What's the organization culture like? Dave, if you would like to.
Well, boring is a very strong word. But yes, fashion from the outside looks very, very glamorous. To a lot of people, fashion is glamour. But actually, there's a lot of hard work that happens inside. Right from our design team, our buyers, they go to factories, work in very tough conditions, work with our business partners, vendors, creating those designs, creating those silhouettes, finalizing fabric. So I think that's what he meant by saying it's very, very grounded. It's not about, ramp walks and fashion shows. It's really about getting down to the print, the color, fabric, construction of the fabric, sitting in the factories, getting the production out. So that's really what goes into fashion. So therefore, to do that day in and day out, it's very important that you have a set of team members who have bought into this culture. We are not flamboyant. We are a set of bunch of people who are really grounded, roll up your sleeves, do what is needed at the store level, what is needed at the product level. And I think that's what has gotten us till here, and quite grateful for that. And just an interesting fact, most of our senior leadership, when I say senior leadership, which is N-1, N-2 to the board, they're all 15 years plus in the organization. And that helps because once you have people who've spent such a long time in the organization, they help carry the culture year after year. And they're able to groom in youngsters who join, at the entry level. So both have worked for us.
Just to add to what they were saying, I think culture-wise, I think founders' mentality run very deep in our organization. And we have worked very, very carefully to cultivate that ownership mindset in the leadership. And that's what results into what they were saying, that virtually top 100, 150 leaders having spent more than a decade with that very narrow and deep expertise as a focus. I think, so we don't have an employees at that level. I mean, virtually you are talking about owners, right? So I don't think we have to employ them. They are the ones who are running. It's their business they built in. So it's their company. And that's broadly the culture. So we don't have to really work that extra hard to how are we going to attract our employees and so on and so forth.
What a boring company, really, isn't it? And completely unfashionable. I mean, if you look at, younger companies, direct to consumer, $10 million valuation, $100 million valuation, and then bust. There is some excitement in life. And these guys seem to be just doing the same things again and again. But tell me, when you talk about people, team, and you said no fashion shows, but being at the store or being at the vendor's place, how do you attract talent? And Shital, if you can talk about also, your ethical system, your value system.
See, I think, Pankaj, I mean, I agree. I mean, just to answer, I think you use the word boring. I think, while they may not agree, but I think that is true, I think even our board meeting, while I talked about PBT, ROC, free cash flows, we don't really bother about that. Something very unique to Landmark, we focus on midline metrics, not the top line, not the bottom line, And really, even at the board level, the focus is on how those midline metrics, the productivity metrics on, the staff, stock, square feet is driven very, very hard. So in that sense, if you were to call it boring, it is, But to answer other things, what really is that secret sauce, that glue? I mean, let me go back to, the statement, which is now what we hold as a vision statement for Mickey, the founder of the group. 4 decades back, he said that creating exceptional value for every human life we touch. I think that's the core of what Landmark does. Everything else is an outcome, whether it is look at our customers. And therefore, you will find that Landmark, all the formats, not only just India, but around the world, making sure that we give value to the customers, through product, through experience. That value for money is something very, very strong to Landmark. Look at our even employees. I was talking about, there are examples of store manager having risen to the vice president or even senior vice president level. So giving them that freedom, authority, along with the accountability and allowing them to operate as an owner is something which creates a lot of value to them. And even the vendors. Let me give you an example. I think COVID, it's not too far back, we dealt with very, very tough times. And I'm sure everybody knows that not only the businesses in India, but even around the world, people are talking about canceling orders and not paying the vendors, et cetera, et cetera. We are a debt-free company. We never had debt for the last 10, 15 years. We had to take a 4-digit debt in crores one day. And we made sure that all the vendors are paid on time. Of course, we didn't know what to do with the stock, but be that as it may be, we sort of cleared our dues, honored our commitments, but we didn't stop at that. In fact, in the board meeting, discussions are that now that you're sitting with 8 months of stock, you're not releasing orders on your vendor, your vendors are exclusive to you, 70% of our business. What happens to his ability to pay his staff? Now, we couldn't find solution to giving orders when we're sitting with 8 months of inventory, but we went around and almost 100-odd vendors, to all their workers, 3 months of ration was given through the Jagtiani Foundation. So I think this entire ecosystem, which sort of adds value and creates a win-win proposition for not only the employees who are working for us, but the partners who are working with us. And that is what is underlying, what is not visible in Landmark. Output is what everybody can see. Great retail formats you can see, but what really drives it from behind is this, and that's the secret sauce.
Shital, that's really interesting to hear, Shital. But a question comes in my mind when we look at younger talent, people who are wanting to join an organization. If you have an organization where people don't leave, and if people have been there for 20, 30, 40 years, how do new ideas come in? And are you guys missing the boat in terms of what's happening? You've not got into, online in a big way. You've not done brands. And look at everybody else, they're doing stuff like that.
So I'll answer this. I think there were 2 questions in that. So one is, how do we manage talent when senior leadership is there? Second is online. From the outside world, it may look like the online business is small, but we are more than 1,000 crore plus in online. Yeah, so that's the number. So it's not small, it's a fairly large part of our business. So there is a huge amount of focus going in online. So that's a strategic decision we've taken. We are in this for the long haul. We are not looking at short term. So online and digital and technology is where most investments are going. The second part about how do you manage young blood, how do you manage young ideas. So while the senior leadership is very tenured, they've been in the system for more than 10, 15 years, we have a very strong management trainee program. In fact, last year we took, I think, 56, 58 management trainees, and that's an ongoing process. So you have a very strong pipeline of youngsters coming into the company. What also helps is that we've been growing at a CAGR of double digit. That really helps because there's huge opportunity for middle management to go up. So the youngsters come in. So it's a combination of business growth, getting in young talent, and driving new ideas, launching new categories.
Just to add to what Dev is saying, I think let me correct the perception. I think we have a very, very strong focus on online. In fact, we don't find that much focus in most other organizations. However, the difference is what you call an online business. We don't call selling through marketplaces an online business. For us, online business is what you do direct to consumer. And that's the reason, much before the COVID made online much bigger, we invested heavily in our D2C businesses. We were not even present in marketplaces. And while over now, last 4 or 5 years, we are available in all marketplaces, but you will find it very, very surprising that all the leading India's marketplaces put together, where our products are available, put together, they cannot touch our direct-to-consumer business, direct online. And that is the reason why, there is a reason why we have done that, because we have deeply invested in this. Today, there are more than 100 engineers, data scientists, analytic people sitting there. And this is all investment done way before the COVID struck us. And at a group level, if you roll it up, now we have almost $500 million of D2C business between Middle East and India. So it's a fairly formidable D2C business. And for fundamentally a brick and mortar player, running a large D2C business and making profit out of it is almost unheard of in India.
So I think I'm going to now ask you to switch hats, and as individuals, been in this industry for long, if there are any insights you want to give to the team here. But before that, I want to share something. I come across a lot of businesses which are at a certain size wanting to raise capital. I've had the fortune of being involved with Landmark Group for over 2 decades now. And about 15, 16 years ago, to raise 100 crore, we were running around, where the group said, we don't want to bring in money into India, which is not repatriable. And how do we raise capital? And to see that, and the point I'm making is that this company was also looking at 100 crores not too long back to fund its growth. And today it's sitting on significant cash just because it stuck to the knitting, did the right things, and did not get carried away. With this, any key messages or takeaways that you want to leave the audience with?
I'm sure they have their own ideas, but I can share what has worked for Landmark Group. I think, like I mentioned earlier, the DNA of the organization is product development. The product, when I say product development, looking at what is the consumer for that catchment and creating the right product assortment for that store at that granular level is what I believe has really transformed Landmark Group over the last 20 years in the country. And when I say our focus is product, I'm not referring to just buyers or category heads or head of products or chief merchandising officer. This is discussed at the board level. The founder, Mrs. Renuka Jagtani herself, is personally involved in creating products. There are days of brainstorming on how consumers are changing in the country. How is North different from South? How is it different from East? How do we curate products for these various markets and catchments? How do we look at metro markets? How do we look at tier 2 markets? There's a huge amount of effort. I would say that is one singular thing I find very, very exceptional in Landmark Group, and that I believe has stood in good stead over the years.
Shital, any?
Yeah. I mean, just two things. I mean, maybe I have mentioned that, but just to reiterate, I think to me, I mean, no business, I mean, you should not really, if you really want to drive results are an outcome, whether it is revenue or the bottom line. How do you make sure that you focus on the right things, do it right, do it well, and do it consistently over a long period of time? May sound boring to many, but I think to me that's a secret of delivering, the financial outcome. And second is, I have seen from a very, very close quarter that while shareholders' returns are paramount, but putting our employees, our vendors, our partners, above everybody else sounds very easy to say, extremely difficult to sort of live up to. But if you do that, I think everything else becomes an outcome, and that's what really becomes a employer branding. And it is not without a reason that Landmark consistently for more than a decade, it's the best, the greatest place to work as far as India is concerned in retail, not only retail, but even beyond that. And it's not only just great place to work for, but even work with. And all that is coming from that culture of balance, right? Sense of balance which is there, and not just maximize the profits or shareholder returns.
That's great. I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions. In case anybody has a question for Dev or Shital. So here's my question to the two of you. We have a minute, so I'm going to use that. So if people wanted to partner with you in India, what is it that a partner could bring to the table?
I mean, normally our partners, I mean, it can come in multiple ways, right? As far as Dev is concerned, he runs lifestyle, and there are a lot of brands which partner with, and we are obsessed about how do we make sure that every brand which works in our sort of stores generate the maximum productivity and profitability. Likewise, for if you look at Max, I think whether it is real estate, whether it is a production, becoming the back-end partner, there are various ways and means through which people can associate with us. We are a bit too choosy, but we have few partners. But you would find even at the back-end in the vendors, I mean, almost 50, 60, 70 vendors we have. They generate around 70% of our production, and they are exclusive to us. They've grown along with us. We like working with, as I was saying, our employees are owners, as well as we like working with small enterprises led by entrepreneurs and work with them over a long period of time.
I think we have a question coming for you.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, I have a question for you. I've heard recently that you've penetrated into Bharat, which is the Bharat of India, and cities and names of cities which are never heard of also, and large stores. What's been the learning and what is your view on that growth?
No, I think, Amitabh, the India story is very, very strong, and there is a great business out there in small towns as well. Our experience has been so far that even on profitability and productivity can be a little less, but the fact that cost structures are also a little lower, our experience is that there is no major difference between profitability, whether you look at the metro city or tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And therefore, we are not in a rush. We are there in probably 200 odd cities. We add almost 30 odd cities every year. There's a long runway, but there is a tremendous business out there. And I think online to some extent has also made sure that the awareness of fashion, appetite for fashion has also grown. And it's a great opportunity, and the runway is really, really long.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.